My 13-year-old nephew met my wife for the first time and said, "I've seen you before." She froze, and what happened next left me shaken. What unfolded after that moment changed everything I thought I knew. Hi, my name is Alex, and I'm a 30-year-old man who's been through a lot recently. Even though some time has passed, it still feels like everything happened just yesterday. I wanted to talk about it with someone other than my family and friends. So here I am. Let me start from the beginning. I was born much later than my brother. He was 16 years old when I was born. Because of the big age gap, we never had a close brotherly bond, although he did spoil me a lot. It felt like he treated me more like his own child than his brother. By the time I was old enough to remember anything, my brother was already off to college. When I was 10 years old, I attended his wedding. He and his wife were already expecting at the time, so I was excited not just for the wedding, but also to meet my nephew and have another kid to play with. 5 months after the wedding, my nephew, Tony, was born. I still clearly remember visiting him in the hospital right after he was born. I was so excited to see his little face and felt an overwhelming amount of love for him. After Tony came home, I spent as much time as possible with my brother to help take care of him. As the years went by, my love for Tony only grew. I would always offer to babysit whenever my brother needed help. Instead of thinking of each other as uncle and nephew, Tony and I felt more like siblings. That's why it was so hard for both of us when I had to move to a different state, Florida, to study and work. But I made sure to always call home and maintain our bond. In my last year of university, I met my wife, Callie. She was a star soccer player, and I still don't know how I caught her attention. Since I wasn't into sports at all, I spent most of my time reading in the library. But one day, Callie found me there and started talking to me. What I loved most about her was how confident and charming she was. Later, after we had been together for a while, she told me she was actually nervous to talk to me, but I never would have guessed that from how confidently she approached me. We went on several dates and quickly realized that even though we had different interests, we fit well together. We shared the same sense of humor and spent all our dates laughing until our bellies hurt. It didn't take long for us to make our relationship official. I always made it clear to Callie how much I loved my family, so she met them through many video calls. The only person I hadn't told about Callie was my nephew Tony. Even though Callie had met almost everyone important in my family, she hadn't met Tony yet. I did talk to her about him a lot, though. One day, Callie asked why she hadn't met my nephew, even though I talked about him so much. I told her, "Babe, I haven't introduced you to Tony because he's just 11. I want to protect his innocence from my adult life." She replied, "I don't think 11 is too young. I'd like to meet him and be part of his life too. Tony is the most important person to me, but he's still a child. He doesn't need to be involved in my romantic life," I explained. "It feels like you're keeping me separate because you doubt our relationship's future," she said. "What? That's not true at all," I assured her. "You're afraid of introducing me to Tony in case things don't work out between us. You don't want to introduce him to someone who won't be a constant in his life," she continued. "You've got it all wrong. It's about protecting him, not doubting us," I said. "All right, fine. Let's drop it. Just understand that I see a long future for us," she said. "But I'm just not ready to mix our worlds yet," I explained. I understood why Callie was upset, but I wasn't ready to involve Tony in this part of my life. I wanted to protect Tony's innocence, even though deep down, I knew I wasn't really doing that. In my mind, he was still that little baby I first met in the hospital. Part 2. My 13-year-old nephew met my wife for the first time and said, "I've seen you before." She froze, and what happened next left me shaken. We spent the next half hour excitedly talking about Tony's new school. I learned that Tony would have little time off. But now that my wife and I were both working, we couldn't just take time off to go meet him. And when Tony was at school, he wasn't allowed to use electronics for long periods. Tony was fine with that because the school had so many extracurricular activities that kept him busy and tired. By the end of the day, I was excited for him to experience new things. When my wife came back from her run, I told her about the call. Once again, she was disappointed that she had missed the chance to meet Tony, but she felt better knowing that I was ready to introduce them. She didn't mind waiting because she knew I wasn't purposely keeping her away from the most important person in my life. A few months later, while visiting my family for Thanksgiving, my wife decided to propose to me. I couldn't have imagined a better moment for her to do it. She knew how much I wanted my family to be there for my big moments. I said yes with the biggest smile on my face and tears streaming down my cheeks. We got married the following year. Tony, of course, heard the news and sent me a text congratulating me. My wife and I spent the next year meticulously planning our wedding. We wanted everything to be perfect. Since Tony was still in school, there was no way for him to attend the wedding. I was devastated that he couldn't make it, but I knew his education was more important than an event like a wedding. Plus, my wife comforted me by saying we could have a small ceremony after Tony graduates to replicate our wedding. The wedding was a grand affair. Everyone laughed and cried, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. The love and support I received that day were beyond anything I could have imagined. I truly believed the rest of my life would be blissful because I got to spend it with my wife. And for the first year of our marriage, that was true. But then things started to go downhill. We both had stable 9-to-5 jobs, made good money, and lived comfortably. We never really wanted children, so that wasn't something we had to plan for. So it came as a surprise one night when we were lying in bed, and my wife asked if she could start working overtime. "Babe, there's something I need to talk to you about," she said. "What is it?" I asked, a little concerned. "I've been thinking about working overtime at work," my wife said one night as we lay in bed. "Overtime? Why the sudden interest?" I asked, surprised. "I've been aiming for a promotion for a while now, and the extra money could help us," she explained. "I love that you're passionate and ambitious, but we're already comfortable," I said. "I know, but I think we can do even better," she replied. "I love our time together, just relaxing after work and on weekends. That means a lot to me," I told her, hoping she'd understand. "I value that too, but I see the potential for more," she said. "It's not about potential. It's about quality of life. I want to enhance our quality of life through hard work," she insisted. "I respect your choices, but I'm not happy with this decision. I'll admit it," I said. "I'm doing what's best for both of us," my wife said, then turned over and turned off the light after wishing me good night. I was left awake with my thoughts, feeling upset that she had made this decision without really discussing it with me. We didn't need the extra money. We were both able to save a good amount each month. We had made smart investments, had our retirement funds set up, and lived comfortably, so I didn't understand why she felt the need to work more. But I figured that if my wife was happy, I would be happy too. The next few months were torture for me. My wife started